good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of the day it is that you're listening to this. Welcome back to my podcast. Welcome back to Walking with Wanzu. Thank you for coming on back. Thank you for all the feedback and for listening in. This is a beautiful space, in case you're new on here, where we talk and we learn from each of every one of our own life experiences, more so mine, because I love to share my story and the many lessons and nuggets and pieces of wisdom, and also just the many blessings that I have gotten through my life's journey. So today is on a Monday, and yesterday was on a Sunday. It was Father's Day. Happy belated Father's Day to all the fathers in the house. You do such a good job, and we appreciate you and we love you for it. So Father's Day for me usually is normally a day that is a bit bittersweet. Bitter why, we'll get to it. Sweet why, we'll also get to it. But I just want to take this moment to be able to appreciate all the fathers in the house, all the fathers who are listening and tuning in. And as we think of fathers, we are very cognizant that there are fathers who are in different phases of their life. There are fathers who are fathers to newborns. There are fathers who are fathers to, children who their moms are still expectant and they're hoping to be able to deliver soon and just be able to hold and embrace their bundles of joy. There are fathers to babies who are no longer here with us and our residences with the Father up above, children who were born and for one reason or the other they transitioned into the other life, and so they're not here with us physically. And on this particular day, we just want to remember those fathers and tell them that as we remember even the mothers who go through loss and most of the loss of a pregnancy, we acknowledge the role that you play in it as a father and as a co-creator with God, just bringing life into the world. And so we acknowledge you as well, and we celebrate you as a father. We want to remember also in a special way all the daddies who God took home and are not here with us, and they're up in heaven resting and have transitioned as well into another life. We remember them. We remember the good times that we have been given, the sweet memories that we hold in our hearts, and we just pause on this particular special day that's set aside to remember fathers, and we just want to say that we love them and we remember them, and we take all the memories that we have of them and hold them very close and dear to our hearts. Oh wow, I feel like it is very important through each and every stage and phase of life that we go through to remember to always just pause and sometimes try, however difficult or however easy it may be, depending on the phase of life or the season that you're in, to learn to be grateful for these things. I grew up in a single parent home, and I've never had the privilege to be able to know my biological dad until very recently as an adult of 28 years. And I can tell you that my mom did an amazing job. We lacked nothing. I lacked nothing because I'm an only child, and she was able to provide and went above and beyond to make sure that she was the best parent that she could be. And I turned out great, and I'm so grateful and so thankful for my upbringing. But I will tell you this for a fact, that I always really envied those people who had their daddies with them, and those people who came from a home where they had both parents, so they had the mom and the dad represented. And I always wondered what it would be like, because that's something that I never grew up doing, mentioning the name dad or being so even now in my adult life, as my mom has moved on to be able to settle down and is married, I find it very hard to refer to my stepdad as dad, or just like the name dad sometimes is very foreign to me. And it wasn't until recently when of course I decided to just be in a space of thankfulness and just look around me and see all the many things that I can be grateful for, that I realized that being a believer and a Christian, that God is my heavenly Father. And so now I make it a point to be able to every now and then when I'm conversing with him, whether I'm in trouble or not, whether I'm just whispering a prayer of gratitude, or whether I'm just in a space where I want to talk to God, then I make it a habit to refer to him as daddy, because not only is he the end all be all, the finisher and founder of my faith, but he's also my dad. He's my heavenly dad. And so I'm grateful for that, and I celebrate him as well. So growing up in a single parent home, that means that Father's Day was a very strange time for me. I never really quite knew how to react or how to behave. I never got the courage to be able to inquire about my paternal side until I was well into my teen years. And even when I did, it was met with a bit of resistance and hostility. And so that's something that I chose not to revisit. But I will tell you this though, with every storm, there's always a rainbow at the end of the day. And my rainbow was that God brought all these amazing men in my life, whether it was in my very young formative years and even well into my teen years, and even when I just started my first job, when I landed my first job, which was a teaching job, I always had men who, for one reason or another, self-appointed themselves, and they would come through and they would call me, they would step in and fill in the gap and be like, oh, this is my daughter, or what do you need? And whether it was, whether they did it, whether they were aware of it or not, in one way or another, they managed to step in and fill those shoes. And they were a father figure, and they were my go-to, and they were my rock in so many ways. And I am so grateful for each and every one of them. One thing that's a trait that I have noticed I have is I hold on to the many good things that people do for me, and I never forget them. Just as well as I hold on to the bad. But when people have impacted my life in a very positive way, or even do something that they wouldn't consider a big deal, it's something that I hold on very dear and close to my heart, and I carry with me. And so that has been the rainbow in my cloud or in my storm, that God has brought, in one way or another, several men who have just come and filled and stood in the gap and walked with me through my journey. And so although they were not resident dads and I didn't get to see them all the time, and not all of them were dating my mom, in fact most of them weren't, I remember the very first guy who was present and around my life, and was more so even, I would say, as a big brother than a dad, was our choir master. So I joined the choir when I was really, really young. I was in class 5. I was 10 years old, and I just loved playing the drums. So I would play the drums. I was the youngest in the choir. Of course, I was even the shortest in the choir, but they understood the gifting that I had, and they gave me my space, and they allowed me to be able to thrive in my talent and to be able to own my space and serve in the church. And so there was a choir master who was my friend, and he always listened to my many childhood random stories, and he would encourage me and encourage my gift. And I mean, he, even in the choir, it's like I have this assigned position where the drums used to be, and no one used to sit there. And even though sometimes I would be slightly late for mass, I would find my spot, and I would find the drums waiting for me to come and do my thing. So that was very exciting for me, and that was the very first father figure that I ever had, who was even more as a big brother. And then of course I went on to continue the rest of my life, and I had my uncle, who's my mom's brother, who was really there for me. I mean, the times he would babysit him together with my aunt, his wife, and family, and they always, my mom's siblings and even my mom's brother-in-law, always stood in the gap and would always help, would always hold my hand and come through for me. And because as an only child, even when I visited other family during the holidays, I never quite felt that gap, because there was always daddy and mommy represented, and I always felt part of them. And being in a space where I could see both parents represented, in a way, was so comforting to me, and it helped me just to be able to see and feel what it would be like to live in that kind of a dynamic. And one man that I would not want to leave this episode and end this episode without sharing was someone who I met when I had just finished high school, and I was volunteering to teach at a nearby school in the village. And immediately when I was introduced to the staff and I walked in and I sat, he walked in and we hadn't met, but he walked in and he said hi and he said, "Oh wow, I think it's such a beautiful thing that you're volunteering in the community to be able to teach." And so every time I interacted with him, whether it was a good morning greeting or a "how are you today?" or "I'm stuck, can you help me do this?" or "I don't know how to navigate this particular lesson," he always referred to me as my daughter. And so you would find that sometimes maybe if he has a snack and it's a banana or there's only one cup of tea left, he's like, "Give it to my daughter. Let her have some tea. She's still growing. She's she's budding and she's blossoming into this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful girl. So give it to my daughter." He would always bring by opportunities my way. I remember there was this one time that there was an opening to be able to join a teacher's training college, and he looked for my number and he called me when I was home and he told me, "There's this opportunity and I think you should explore it because though untrained, you teach so well. I feel like it's your calling and you can really thrive and learn from it." And so this man was quote unquote my father figure in the workplace, and he always held my hand, and he, I just felt like I could talk to him whenever I wasn't quite sure how to navigate the teaching space or of what to do, and he really held my hand. And in that particular time, that being my first job, I definitely knew that man was handpicked by God to help me navigate that terrain, not only as a mentor or as someone who I could look up to, but also as a father figure. And that's someone who, every time I think of men who just take up the mantle or just see a gap and fill it, I always think of him, and I am really, really grateful for the short amount of time that I got to experience him as a mentor and as a father figure, but also just incredibly grateful for that, for being able to experience that. And so that brings me into the conversation of our fathers and the men in our lives. And though young or old, because now we are living in an age where most young men and most young women as well are sexually active, and so becoming parents at a very young age. And a special group of people also come to mind at this particular time, and that's the men who just take responsibility, however much unplanned or however much they just pretty much find themselves toppling into parenting or fatherhood. And I have had cases of young men, really, really young boys rather, not even men, maybe in their teens, who, for one reason or another were sexually active and had a ping, and then their girlfriends or the lady they're with at the time gets expectant and is pregnant, And so they just take it up and they say, "Okay, so maybe we have school and we have all these responsibilities and our parents need us to do all this, but now we have a life coming in. So how do we navigate this with you? How do we go through it? How do we make sure that we're responsible for this life that we have created?" And that just speaks volumes for me. And I know that in a day and age where single parent homes are so rampant now, and a lot of women have stories, and even I have my own personal story of being with someone and they were not maybe at the time ready to be able to take on that kind of responsibility, and so they walked away. I just want to say that I am really, really grateful, and I applaud from the deepest part of my heart all the men and even the young boys who just take up that role and take up that responsibility and just say, "Okay, so even if at this particular moment I don't feel like the mom and I can be together, this is my child and I want to play a part in it. I want to take this role and I want to pick it up and I want to ride it to the end." And I'll tell you, as a mom, and I'm sure I say this so many times, parenting is difficult. It takes a lot from you. It takes up your finances, it takes up your time, it takes up your emotions, it takes up so much from you. And parenting engulfs a lot of sacrifice. But the ultimate reward is just seeing this life thrive and blossom and bloom. And our children just, they just every day they take up strides and they're taking up different milestones, and they're just blooming in your eyes. And that, my friend, that is the ultimate reward of parenting. And so maybe a special word up there to the boys. Maybe you're listening to this podcast right now and your girlfriend just told you she's pregnant, and the first instinct that you're feeling because you're scared is to flee. And I just want to encourage you and tell you that it never is quite easy to take responsibility for your actions, especially when you see that the repercussions are really huge and you don't know how to navigate it. It can be scary. But one thing that you need to know is it can be done. So if you're a dad or a dad to be, and you've walked away or you've gone in hiding or you've chosen even to reject the situation and turn a blind eye to it, I want to encourage you to just go and seek out that child and go and seek out that lady, and please take responsibility for that child, because as young girls, and I will speak to you right now as a girl, our daddies, whether we know it or not, are our first love, and that's the first man that we get to experience. And if you bring a life into this world and that life just happens to be a beautiful baby girl, then you want to make sure the first interaction of a man that she has is pure, is beautiful, and reassures her that there are good men out there, and it sets the standard. So anytime, whether she goes on in life to meet different people, because at some point our children will go out of our protection and our guide, and we'll have to let them go and experience life for themselves, then you as a dad will have set the bar, and she will be sure to take nothing less than what her daddy has shown her, which is that she is beautiful, she is a queen, and she deserves to be treated with love and a lot of respect. So please reach out to your baby. It could be 6 months later, it could be 10 months later, maybe right now as we talk it's 5 years later, but I'll tell you that it's never too late to make things work. And as I always say, a single step in the right direction is always progress. And a single step in this case could be just finding out where they are and whether they're okay, or even just a simple phone call, and then you can take it from there. And so I just want to applaud in a very special way also the men who've come into the lives of women with children, or even into the lives of children who are orphaned, and have just decided to be able to fill in the gap and be fathers and be stepfathers and love on these babies and love on their mothers as well. And even, just take up this responsibility and this role, so much so that we can differentiate or be able to tell that you did not biologically sire this child. And we just want to tell you that you're not overlooked, but you're celebrated and you're highly appreciated. You really are. So let's take up the challenge, men, young men and boys, to be able to be the best that we can be, and know that fathers are our protectors. They are the priests of our home, and they just set the standard. They truly are everything. Even as young ladies and young women and as children, just girls that we look up to. And if you're a daddy's girl maybe and you're listening to this, just you just know how vital it is and what a pivotal space your fathers and your daddies hold in your life. So we celebrate all the fathers out there. We just want to say that we are grateful for all it is that they do. I know I've said this so many times and I cannot say it enough. More so to the fathers who just own their space and take up the mantle and do what it is that parenting is all about, and just take up this amazing and incredible role that God has blessed you with. So happy Father's Day to all those who even are in toxic relationships with their parents, more so their fathers. I hope and I continue to hold you in prayer and pray that the space gets better, and that moving forward we'll be able to hear good stories about parenting and about fatherhood, and those who are doing what it is that they need to do and are doing it so well and we see it will be an inspiration and a role model and a standard for those who are just coming in. Parenting is an everyday journey, just like we know it's not set up or it's not cast on stone. There's no particular book that teaches you how to navigate it. We basically just wing it, and all that we have at the back of our minds that we console ourselves with is that we all want the best for our children. And so whatever it takes to give our children the best, that is what we do. So our priests, our protectors, our providers, and our co-creators to be able to make these amazing children that God has given us, who are fathers. We celebrate you and we love you. Happy Father's Day. God bless you, and I will talk to you on the next one. Thank you for listening in. Happy Father's Day. Bye bye.